very, very frustrated. But I wanted to find out more about an idea out there called rethinkgop.org and about whether or not there's a way to revitalize the Republican Party and have it start to win some big victories by doing some of the things legally that the other side does well. Robert Duran joins me now, who's National Executive Director of the group rethinkgop.org. Mr. Duran, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
What's wrong with the Republican Party right now?
I don't know if I would articulate it as something wrong with the Republican Party. As I would say, the Republican Party is good at certain things, and one of them is working well together to keep a strong organization, but that oftentimes means slower movement. And in this particular election cycle, we need fast movement. We need movement in a particular place, that being ballot harvesting and early voting. And so what Rethink GOP does is offer a place where we're hyper-focused on these two things and working very much in tandem and in conjunction with the party to help better it long-term is the goal.
So in terms of ballot harvesting, I don't like the idea of ballot harvesting, but I will accept the argument that if the other side does it legally, then we should do it legally, except I think the other side also does it illegally in many cases. Should we be getting behind things like ballot harvesting when a lot of us think philosophically it's wrong to do?
Well, these are very old processes, and recently, in recent generations, we've branded them certain things. But truth be told, what we learned more than ever last cycle as we peeled the layer from the elections to look under the hood is that we saw processes that we may have not liked the look of, and we demonized them. But the truth was they are legal. And so then in that essence, we want to approach this as a solutionary organization that is going to achieve a lot of things. 10% is really what we see as a very controllable, feasible goal nationwide in many, many races, but it's going to take the effort. A $900 million competitor of the DNC is what we're competing with.
How do you do that? I mean, let's start with the first thing you say that rethinkgop.org will do, boost voter turnout. I mean, all of us realize that if every last Republican in a given city, county, or state turned out, we'd win easily. So how do you get there?
Well, we have to be mindful that we are up against something that's a machine that is the DNC. And so we take a very, very, very solutionary approach to be involved with all levels of volunteers, whether that's through the scope of many organizations or even the party, to involve them to build out the organization and apparatus and effort through volunteers as much as possible, but then filling the gaps where there's not going to be volunteers and utilizing volunteers as much as possible. But the state by state, what we've done is that we're an 18-state enterprise organization as of now, soon to be 50. But our chair people for the states are leading the efforts of fundraising, and right now what we're looking to do in Nevada, Oregon, hopefully next, Washington, is to engage the community as a kickoff party, basically an announcement. But in that, bring forward a very large educational platform for people to understand these processes, bigger and better than anyone else's, I will say.
Mr. Duran, I've got to be honest with you. That sounds kind of squishy to me. We're going to organize better. We're going to talk to people. We're going to educate them. How do you actually get people to show up at the polls and vote? Here's
the story. So you're right, because it's not just the education. So what we've done is we understood that. So what we did is we developed a beautiful software. And part of our educational platform when we go to meet with state and party officials is to teach them this platform, because you're right. Presenting someone with information has no quality if there's no outcome. And so what this software does is it allows the people, let's say volunteer heads and party heads, to be able to monitor that outcome and drive tangible outcomes and circumvent some issues that you saw last cycle. Like in Nevada, you saw some issues of people not going where they were told in our software, you'll be watched. You're going to be the chain of custody. Stay tuned. It's a big deal, but it's not announced quite yet.
Okay, but when you say guarantee fair vote counting, how do we make that happen? When you mentioned Nevada, in Nevada, as I understand it, they don't, no, it's Arizona. In Arizona, the ballots aren't even counted by the county where they're cast. Maricopa County being the biggest one, they actually hand it off to a private sector company, and then the county takes the private sector company's word for what the ballot count was. And the head of that company seems to have kind of a political dog in the fight. He's a major league Democrat donor. How do you guarantee, say, a fair vote count, for example, in Arizona, when you've got a private organization headed up by a big-time Democrat donor who says, we'll count the ballots and we'll tell the county what the result was? I wouldn't trust that.
Well, what we know is from last cycle, we looked deep into all that was election interference, and what we saw is that it was not enough to change an election. What we now know is we disenfranchised our voters. That message disenfranchised Republicans to get out, and Republicans need to remember that our processes are safe. They're secure. We looked into them at the utmost last cycle, and we need to now involve ourselves in things like these legal processes. And these legal processes were to our own detriment last cycle in 2022. It's to our thinking, 22 races last cycle lost because we did not participate in these.
And how about ballot curing? The Democrats seem to be great at that, especially with absentee or mail voting, where a ballot comes in, it's not signed, it's not dated, and the Democrats get right to work on curing all the Democrat ballots. Do the Republicans do the same?
So part of our extended organization and mission is to include that. As of now, that's not something that we're including in what we're looking to do. We're looking right now ballot harvesting and early voting, and the iterations that are ballot harvesting. And what I mean by that is some people call it ballot collecting, ballot chasing, and that's usually depending on regulatory environment. You'll call it a different thing, but the gist of ballot harvesting.
Okay, fair enough. Robert Duran heads up the organization. It's called rethinkgop.org. Mr. Duran, thanks very much. I appreciate your time. It's a First Amendment Friday. Your phone